248-539-9797. It's the Valenti Show with Rico. I am Stoney in for Mike. We got Kenny and the Hatchet Man behind the glass. And ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by a player who actually, a person who is a player who actually played in weather that's colder than it is right now. And that would be one TJ Lang. What's up, TJ? How are you?
What's going on? My car was making noises I've never heard before. Just like with the cold weather.
Right.
It's like the ice gets built up under your tires. My furnace, I'm sitting at home. I felt like the dad from A Christmas Story where he just fights the furnace.
Yeah.
Like the entire movie. It's like, what are these noises? And like the things coming out of the exhaust on the ground. Like, I don't know what is going on. Yeah, it's frigid out there, but.
You've played in it.
You know,
right? You've played in weather that's colder than this.
We played, so two games come to mind that we played. The NFC Championship game in 2010 at Chicago was, I think it was about 10 degrees, but minus 20-ish.
Was that the Jay Cutler got hurt game?
Yeah. They were down to the third-string quarterback at that point, who threw a pick six to our defensive tackle, by the way, which was incredible. And then we played the Niners, I think, in 2012 or 13, where it was about today, like 5 degrees, but this was a 4:30 kickoff.
Right.
So by the time the fourth quarter hits, I think it was about minus 35 wind chill. Oof. And it was it's brutal. And as a player, like you don't feel it when you're playing. I mean, you feel cold, obviously, but the adrenaline's going. Where you feel it is if you're out on you're out on a long drive or something, then the 2-minute warning hits, and then it's a TV timeout, and you're out there on the field, and it's like, whoa.
Or do you have to reset yourself at halftime too?
Yeah, because it's almost like a vortex from the sideline. You have so many heaters, and you have the big heated benches, and you go to the sideline, it's like, literally like a 60-degree difference. And anytime you go to the sideline, you kind of sit on the bench. You can put your helmet on the warmers that warm your helmet up, because those things freeze up, and that's what hurts the worst. And then the heater's coming from the side, and then as soon as you cross that white line and get back onto the field, it's like, ooh, there it is. I actually burnt my gloves one time because my hands were numb, and I couldn't feel. You don't have feeling, and I'm putting them in front of the heater, and one of my teammates next to me started hitting me on the shoulder pad, and I was like, what? And he's like, dude, look. And I looked down, and my gloves were literally starting to char up and smoke. Whoa. But I couldn't feel it because they were numb. My fingers are numb. But it's crazy. And honestly, I'll tell you this, and I'm probably in the minority, but I think the most offensive linemen would agree with me. I'd rather play out there today than play in 90-degree heat. Because
really?
I've done both. 90-degree heat is excruciating, man.
It's tough to breathe.
It drains you. You play like 2 or 3 plays, and you're like, why am I already out of breath? I'm hot. I can't breathe. The air's thick. If at least you play in this stuff, it's like, okay, they have to do it too. Like, it's almost like nobody wants to touch each other, and it makes your job a little bit easier. But yeah, I would choose. If you gave me a choice, Rico, playing in the desert heat or playing out here in Metro Detroit today,
you'd rather play
100 times out of 100.
Okay, so
I'd
do
rather
you go
play
out
today.
there with just, almost sleeveless, just your jersey, or do you have stuff on underneath?
No, you have stuff underneath, but so
because I always amazed,
think,
like an offensive lineman or D lineman who come out there and they're almost bare arm, like. Really?
Yeah,
that seems like that would hurt.
I think I addressed this. Actually, I had not a disagreement, but a conversation with somebody on social media maybe a week ago, and it was about the lineman and the sleeves conversation. And it's a myth for people to say it's a toughness thing. We want to show we're tough and we can play in weather. That is a myth. To me, it was always a comfort thing. I didn't like wearing long sleeves because it felt like it restricted me from, extending my arms and, getting the level of separation that I wanted. Mm-hmm. I couldn't do that with long sleeves because it was always kind of pulling me back a little bit, and I didn't like that. So what I did was wear a kind of cut off tank top turtleneck that was pretty thick, like a long john, whatever you want to call it. And then I would wear super long elbow sleeves that were warming, but I couldn't have anything under my armpit that felt like it was going to restrict me from reaching out to kind of keep the defender away from me. So that was it for me. I mean, if I was comfortable wearing sleeves and I'm like, yeah, it feels great, I could do it, I would have worn sleeves every single time. And I think most guys would have. You also have some different tricks that a lot of guys, back when I first started playing, that you'd lube your arms up with Vaseline so that it kind of clogs your pores to where you get cold is when you're playing games like that and you start to sweat. And then the sweat starts to freeze, and that's where you feel like you're cold at. So you would put Vaseline, or a couple years later they came out with a thing called Warm Skin, which is kind of the same thing, a lubricant that you just put across your arms or your legs to kind of keep you from sweating to feel that freezing. But
isn't that dangerous?
Well, you sweat from other places, but it's got to get out somehow. But if you could keep your arms, keep your arms warm, that was the biggest key. But no, I loved playing in the cold weather. I did.
Because you're from here. You grew up playing in the ball.
Most old linemen will tell you the same thing because it slows the defensive line down too. They come off the ball a little bit slower, and hey, let me read things. I don't really want to make contact. My fingers are freezing. When your fingers are freezing and you jab it on something, and it hurts like a bitch. We all know that, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, but I would choose the cold weather, man. I would choose the cold weather.
Every
day of the week.
We'll talk about the conference championship games coming up later, but the Lions did make a lot of news this week with the hiring of their offensive coordinator. I think I said to Mike, I can't remember a coordinator hire getting as much, reaction. Granted, a lot of social media was not around when a lot of the stuff took place years ago with coordinators.
Careful, you may not know ball.
Well, okay, we'll get to that in a little. We'll get that in a little bit later. What's your feeling on their OC? You probably have talked to some people.
I think it was solid, yeah, and I have talked to some people, and I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. Because the biggest thing to me this offseason is still going to be player acquisition.
Right.
What can you do to bring in, to rebuild that offensive line? What can you do to replenish that defense that's going to lose some guys, especially up front? That's going to be the biggest key to me. So that's why I didn't have a super strong reaction to the Drew Petzing hire, was because I'm like, okay, that's great. That's step number one. Fill in your coaching staff, get those guys right. What I do know is it was an extensive search. I think that somebody I talked to said there were 11 people that they interviewed. I would disagree if somebody told me they couldn't get their top target in Mike McDaniel. No, I don't want to really go down that road. I know Mike McDaniel is a smart football coach.
Right.
I think he can design really good plays. For what this team lacked this past season, when it was details and being attentive and doing what you're supposed to do, I don't know if bringing in a guy that's just going to call really cool plays is going to help that. I think you need somebody that's
going to
the other thing about Mike McDaniel, he's still interviewing for a job.
Can you imagine if the Lions hired him? Yes.
And now he's the Buffalo Bills head coach.
Let me put this in a hypothetical way. If you hired Mike McDaniel, how long do you think you'd probably have him for?
2 years.
If he was good,
2 years max.
If he's good.
Now, what a lot of coaches do, and tell me if I'm up against it. I forget when you guys break.
You got it.
What a lot of coaches do when they interview for these jobs, they have leverage, right? So when they go and they say, "I'd love to be your offense coordinator, but I want it my way. I want to bring in other coaches. I want to bring in my guys. I want to bring in my own quarterback coach, my own O-line coach, my own running back coach." Mm-hmm. So you're kind of purging the system, right? So you're saying, okay, if we hire this guy, maybe we have to get rid of a Scotty Montgomery,
right,
who's an associate head coach.
Hank Fraley.
Maybe we have to get – thank you. Maybe we have to get rid of Hank Fraley, who's an outstanding offensive line coach. Is that worth it for a year? That's hypothetical.
Right. If he's going to take you to the promised land,
is that worth it?
If you get to the Super Bowl, it's absolutely worth it.
It doesn't even matter if you get to the Super Bowl. Even if they get back to winning 12 games and make it to the divisional round, and the offense is standing pat with what they've been doing and scoring 30 points a game, Mike McDaniel's probably gone. And guess what? All those other coaches are probably going with him wherever he goes.
Right.
So is it worth it to bring in a coach like that that's going to purge your entire staff because you're giving out these needs and he has demands of, I'm going to take this job only if I can bring in my own guys to work with me? Is that worth it for a year? To me, it's not. And I'm not saying that he wasn't one of their top targets.
Right.
I totally agree with that. But when I look at the Drew Petzing hire, take this year out of it because we can all agree that injuries aren't an excuse. When you look at Arizona,
Right.
it's kind of an excuse,
Yeah.
right? When you're down to like your fifth and sixth string running back and your backup quarterback and your 15th offensive line that you've seen the entire year, take this year out of it. 2023 and 2024, when Drew Petzing was calling plays,
they were good.
That was an elite running team. Elite running the football. And you kind of put together a couple other things like him and Ben Johnson, obviously good friends. I think I read a report. I don't know if it's true. Allegedly, I will say
Groomsman.
that he was in his Ben Johnson's wedding. So you kind of have the connection, and I think that's Dan Campbell's way of saying, I need to get somebody like this back in the building that's going to be attentive to the details, that's going to be OCD about every single thing we do, because that's where we were missing last year, and that's what John Morton didn't have to follow up what Ben Johnson did. So I have no problem with the hire.
And he also worked with the aforementioned Hank Fraley before.
He did, yeah.
Funny you said that, because I do want to expound upon that answer next. 97.1.